Hi, I am here on this video. Sorry, I was muted for a second. Hello. Hi, I am here on this video. Oops. Okay, sorry, technical difficulty. Hi, everyone who is here, which may be only a few people, but that's fine. My name is Shelby Eggers, and I'm currently acting as the managing editor of Knock LA. Knock LA is a horizontally managed journalism project created by Ground Game LA back in 2017. And every night this week, Ground Game will be having different virtual events to fundraise. And tonight is the Knock Night. So yeah, we're going to have different reporters come on and talk about their pieces and their work at Knock. And we'll also have a prize giveaway at the end. So stay to the end. You could get a prize. And how you enter in the prize is tweet out your favorite Knock article or article series and drop that link in the chat, and then we'll pick someone at random. So yeah, you can win some Knock swag. So awesome. Yeah, so tonight we'll have some reporters come on and talk about the pieces they cover, and specifically highlighting specific issues that we commonly cover at Knock. And first up, we have Cerise Castle and Liam Fitzpatrick. Cerise Castle is a reporter, and Liam was one of the editors of a 15-part investigative series that Knock published back in March of this year called A Tradition of Violence, The History of Deputy Gangs in the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Along with this series, also on Knock LA's website is the first ever public searchable database of gang-associated LASD employees. So check both those things out. And hi, guys.
Hello.
What up?
How's it going? You both look great.
Thanks. As you can tell, I got out my best ball gown for the occasion.
I know, I can tell. Thank you so much. And Liam has his blazer on. So.
Yeah, no, I'm also wearing sweatpants. So I think we all look great.
Perfect. I am as well. I have my turtleneck, but sweatpants on the bottom. So yeah. Hey, how's it going? Just you want to introduce yourself a little bit and talk about like how you came to find out about Ground Game LA and Knock LA, how you got involved with both those orgs.
Yeah, I mean, I can go. Well, I'll go first since my answer is probably shorter. I found out about Ground Game LA through my girlfriend and a couple of mutual friends, and was encouraged to reach out to Knock LA, which is the journalism outlet of Ground Game, to publish some reporting of mine that had been passed over by some of the larger, more mainstream outlets in Los Angeles. And that reporting turned out to be Tradition of Violence, which I think is arguably probably the most successful piece of journalism that Los Angeles County has seen in recent years. Just today, I went to go get a COVID test, and I went to buy coffee, and I saw stickers that we didn't make advertising the series placed on both of those businesses. So I'm super grateful to both Knock and Ground Game for believing in me and for helping me finance this super important work.
Yeah. And I I don't know if we ever did like titles on it, but I guess like one of the lead editors on that series or whatever, like tried to help as much as I could. I got involved in Ground Game in like January 2020, right before lockdown. And around that time, I saw Knock, saw that it could use some help, and got involved editorially there. When Cerise first brought this article to us, I think it was just like, hey, I found this like whole list of payouts that the county keeps that they know are related to gangs. This is probably an article. And then, of course, over the 6-month period that we were working on it, it became much longer than one article, but it's honestly, I think, just one of the most impressive things I've ever been a part of. It's an incredible work that Cerise should take all of the credit for, but also one of the pieces that I think really expresses how critical this kind of journalism is to do in Los Angeles. And it was a real, this might sound cliche, but a real labor of love. Like, people were underpaid and overworked while reporting on this. And it's really incredible to see how much it's resonated with people across the county. This has been happening for decades. Everyone knows about it. It just hadn't been all collected before.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. And you touched on this a little bit already, both of you, but and I know Cerise has talked about this a lot in all of her different interviews and such, but what made you guys really want to commit to making this a full series, and why do you feel like Knock specifically was the place to do that?
For me, it was because no one else wanted to. At the time that I initially started investigating this, I was working at a local NPR affiliate, and this wasn't a story that they were interested in. And I knew that it wasn't something that I could do by myself. I needed a lot of help, and I needed, I think, like, very key and crucially, I needed a lot of money. Because public records do cost money to access, even just to look for, if you want to try and find the record that you're looking for, it costs money to perform that search. And I wasn't in a position to bankroll that alone. So it was very important to me to find a publisher that believed in the project and was willing to take that on. And Knock is volunteer run. It's all donation run. So, like, it really meant a lot that Knock was willing to invest so much of a very small budget into this project.
Yeah. I'll say, in terms of what you were asking about expansion, from my perspective anyway, it was basically like every, so often Cerise and I would have check-ins where it'd be like, hey, I think this maybe needs to be like 3 articles, or like, okay, now I think it's like maybe like 8, and then like 10 and 12 and 15, just as the research went on. And she and also other members of the research team were discovering more and more stuff. It just became impossible not to cover this topic in the nuanced and dedicated way that it deserves.
Awesome. Well, obviously you guys crushed it. It's an amazing series. I mean, I'm extremely biased, but that's my personal opinion. But I would love to hear what, besides some of the things you mentioned about just getting a lot of attention from, different media outlets and, politicians and public figures, what was something like surprising or exciting that resulted from the series that you thought was exciting?
Well, I don't know if this was a direct result of the series, but people have told me that it impacted their vote, their decision, and that was the Democratic Party passing a resolution asking for the current sheriff to resign. That was a pretty big impact that I think we made.
Yeah. For me, in terms of surprising stuff, I mean, honestly, I think it is more of what Cerise was mentioning earlier, just this incredible community outpouring of like people dropping banners and like tagging and all this stuff up just for promoting the series and trying to get this information out there. Like, I am continually humbled and also really appreciative of people spreading this work and trying to make sure that something can actually happen. Like, we, while I'm surprised by this, I do want to say we need more people reading this. We need this to get into the hands of more people in power. More people on the County Board of Supervisors should be taking this issue much more seriously. And yeah, I think that there's still a long way to go in terms of covering totality of this story.
Awesome. And speaking of a long way to go, this has sort of been an ongoing thing for you guys. And then also at Knock, I know Cerise has written several follow-up pieces about LASD specifically. So I was just wondering if there's anything else that you guys were planning on doing, or any follow-up projects that you could let us know about, but no pressure if there's, if you can't share.
Yeah, I mean, we recently completed a brief investigation that resulted in what looks like another law enforcement gang that we were able to uncover. We are still working on sort of the back end stuff of that investigation, but we are, very excited to share that information. Well, maybe excited isn't the right word. Very anxious to share that information with the community, because the implications of this gang are very large and wide-reaching.
Yeah, and in addition to that, we are continuing our investigation into gangs in the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. I'm not sure how much I can say about it in a way that should be like very accessible to a lot of people. We're really excited to have a chance to work potentially on a much larger platform. So keep paying attention to our, social media feeds and everything. There should be more updates on that coming soon, we hope.
Awesome. Yikes. I mean, exciting, it's all terrible, but yes, like you said, anxious, excited. Well, thank you guys for being here. And yeah, I'll let you guys go, and we'll bring up our next guest in a second. But thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Yeah, so before we bring up our next reporters, just wanted to talk a little bit about the series and what it took to make it. There was a lot of work, obviously, by Cerise and Liam and Maggie and the other researchers involved in that project. And we were able to pay some of them, but definitely, especially Cerise was not paid what she should have been for that project, because of our limited funds. And there was also additional costs that Cerise mentioned, including obtaining, theoretically publicly accessible documents, but ended up costing like thousands of dollars to acquire those. And it was because of the, generous support of all of you who donated to Ground Game LA through Act Blue and Knock LA through our Patreon. And, it was through all of that, money that we were able to pay for those documents and the labor, as well as pay for the transition over to our new website over from Medium. So if you are able to, please donate at the link below, and we can continue supporting amazing work like Cerise's work that, some other publications clearly weren't interested in. So yeah. And also, I want to also flag, there was a really great episode right after the series came out of our Twitch show, Knock at Night, which you can find in our YouTube channel about the LASD series. There's a really great interview with everyone. And yeah, so check that out also if you want more info. And then, yeah, we're going to go to our next reporter. Up next, we're going to have Maggie Clancy, who is the previous managing editor of Knock LA. And hi, Maggie. And who has also written pieces for Knock. And yeah, but we're going to talk today about some of our sex worker coverage, which including our Decriminalizing LA series that Maggie was the editor on. Hi, Maggie.
Hi, hello. I'm excited I didn't goof this up. You can hear me, right?
Yes, I can
Great.
hear you. I can see your beautiful pink walls.
Thank you.
Yeah, so tell us a little about yourself and how you came to find out about Ground Game and
my name is Maggie. As Shelby said, I used to, we have a horizontal alignment for our service positions, or kind of like the leadership position. So I was managing editor for a little bit, and it is a lot for a free job, and I actually got started through Ground Game through Liam, because we used to work in the world of content together. And I kind of reached out to him, like, hey, I know you're involved in the Ground Game. How can I help with Knock? And then it just kind of just kept happening, and all of a sudden it was just pretty much my life, and I mean that in a good way. Yeah, and it's been really awesome, and it's been really rewarding doing this work. But we need money, but yeah, it's been great.
Yes, yeah. Give us money so we can pay other people to do this work. So yeah, like there's a couple of things I want to talk about with you, but first I would love to talk about Nessa Marino's series about decriminalizing sex work, which was a series of interviews that they did with a bunch of sex workers in LA and outside of LA, and focusing on different topics around decriminalization. And yeah, I would just love to hear about like how that came about and how it was working on that.
Yeah, I think actually they had been put in touch with us because it was in December, Sista Fosta, which are some I don't want to get too into it, but some fun internet laws that have obviously had some huge negative impacts on sex workers, essentially just, getting rid of all of their abilities to screen people and things like that. But I think something, and I would, Nessa, they're awesome. They couldn't be here tonight, but something they do a really great job with in that series, I think, is just kind of explaining the difference between legalization and decriminalization, and how we need to be decriminalizing. And I think they did an awesome job just talking to each of the sex workers and just kind of learning that it's not, even within like LA, the experience is so different for people. And I think it's just really important, especially, in the wake of the pandemic. Sex workers, a lot of them aren't insured. A lot of them are working like with mutual aid groups just to like kind of make ends meet. So I just think, I don't even know, I'm just rambling right now. It was just one of those things where like reading it and seeing, these are, we don't usually get to hear, sex workers and have, people who are actually involved in it reporting, like, it sometimes can kind of feel voyeuristic, or, and it just, I think that's something cool that Knock does, is we don't just, kind of uplift these stories. We're like, we want, the people involved, the people closest to the issues, to be telling them as well, which is something I just like, just makes me all like warm and fuzzy in my heart, which isn't warm and fuzzy often. So
oh, Maggie's going to get emotional on the stream today.
I might cry.
So yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, and now Nessa is involved in their editorial team, and they also have their own organization called Decrim LA, which is focusing on decriminalizing drugs and sex work in Los Angeles. So definitely hit them up on Instagram if you're interested in helping out with that effort. But yeah, and I would also love to hear about, Nessa wrote a piece recently about all the OnlyFans stuff going on. And, I thought it was really interesting, you having written a piece about PayPal and similar issues there. And I would just love to hear, your thoughts, about like what's going on.
Well, I've got so many of them because this is something I'm very passionate about. I've been kicked off PayPal for working. So just like, fuck you, I'm going to take you down. Anyway, point being, a lot of, folks are like kind of blaming, and I think Nessa does a good job of kind of talking about the complexities of this. Like OF or OnlyFans is like, sex workers built up the platform. That's kind of what it's known for, is sex work. You see whole, it's great. And I believe creators have until October 1st they can remain on the platform, but they have to remove any quote unquote sexually explicit content. And they kind of lay out some of what that is, including, penetration. I should have pulled up the exact language, but some of it is like, any sort of paraphernalia that could be in theory interpreted as, if I'm jerking off a dildo with my feet, like that would be sexually explicit, even though there's not like sexual organs involved, quote unquote. But that's where it gets kind of tricky, because it says that stuff. So there are a couple of things where it's like very clear what the rules are. You know, you can't be penetration, you can't be showing, you know, actual sex. But they're allowing nudes and stuff like that, and the language of the terms of service and the acceptable user agreements are very vague, and that's kind of like the same with PayPal as well. So it's kind of, they get to kind of pick and choose when they are just closing your account without telling you, even if you have money in it. A lot of sex workers will have literally thousands of dollars just taken from them, or frozen for 6 to 8 months, and you have to call. And even that's with PayPal. That's happened with OnlyFans. And I think a lot of people were kind of conflating the, like, oh, these platforms are built up by sex workers, now these platforms want more money. Yes, and the reason why is because financial institutions like MasterCard and Visa, Discover, don't want anything to do with adult sites because they're afraid of child trafficking. Because, you know, as we all know, sex work and child trafficking do get conflated very often, and often to the detriment of actual sex workers. So a lot of, and that's the very like basic version of it, but it's because of banks that we can't do this, and they're trying to find workarounds. But even if, you know, OnlyFans didn't accept these payments, what would they take? And who's gonna, like, what clients are gonna go get a new card? Like with sex work, the barrier to payment has to be so low in order to get them to buy it. So you, like, the more hoops you put up, the less business you're gonna get. Now I'm just ranting, but it's all bad. It's all very, very whorephobic. If you watch porn, pay for it.
Wow, that was a great ending tagline. Beautiful. But yes, thank you so much. You can check out all of this work on Knock LA's website. Yeah, and I think this information is really important to have, because I think a lot of people want to support sex workers, but they don't know what specifically they should be supporting, like, for example, legalization versus decriminalization, and like why there's a difference there. So yeah, thank you so much, Maggie. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me. Bye, y'all.
Bye. Awesome. Yeah, so as Maggie mentioned, you know, our editorial team, we're all volunteers. We do pay writers and editors for their work writing and editing articles. And we are able to do that through the support of all of you. We are 100% funded by the community. And, you know, so we need you guys, need your help to help paying for more articles and at a competitive rate, so people, you know, can be paid properly for their labor and their time. So if you're able, please consider donating to us through Ground Game LA's Act Blue, or become a patron on our Patreon. Yeah. So, but also, if you can donate and still want to get involved with Knock LA, as Maggie mentioned, you know, you don't need a pedigree to write for us. You know, we want people writing about their own experiences. So we're always looking for new LA stories, especially from, you know, writers whose voices aren't typically heard in mainstream media. So please feel free to pitch us at pitches@knock.la. Yeah. And up next, we're going to have Alex Malik, who wrote a really long, awesome, detailed piece about California legislation to watch in 2021, specifically focusing on criminal justice. Hello.
Hello. Hi.
How are you?
Oh, I'm good. As good as can be. How are you?
We're like sort of matching a little bit.
Yes.
Only if I was wearing my glasses.
Yeah.
I know. So tell us a little about you and how you became involved with Ground Game and Knock.
Let's see. So I got involved with Knock last year, leading up to the election. I helped write a couple of articles about the propositions, the criminal justice propositions. I wrote about 1625 and a couple of others. and I started also with writing our amazing voter guide, our super extensive voter guide that had just a ton of people helping out, but it was really, really a huge collective effort, and that was a really great way to be introduced to the group.
Awesome. Yeah. For those who don't know, we did a voter guide last year at the end of 2020. And yeah, that's the thing. If people know, like the one thing people know about NOC is like that voter guide. Like when I meet people.
It was extensive. It was so thorough. We had so many people working around the clock to do that. And I'm so proud of the work everybody did. Like they really killed it.
Yeah. I was unfortunately not there at the time, but I used it when I voted, so I appreciate it.
We'll have next year too.
Yeah. Well, I'll be here for that. So looking forward to it.
Yep.
Well, we got a little bit, jump start. No, I'm just kidding. This is only for 2021, but you wrote a really awesome piece for this year about specifically criminal justice legislation, which I think is so important, especially this last year. I think it's something people are really passionate about. And for me, specifically with bills, it's like, it just seems like the biggest barrier is people not knowing about them. Yeah, so I feel like this stuff like this is really great, like explainer for people. So there's a ton of stuff on here. It's a really great piece that you should read, but I want to focus on some of the legislation that's coming up, that's going to be voted on Thursday. So this coming like 2 days. And we don't have to run through all of these, but there's like 6. So an SB 2, SB 16, AB 1238, SB 262, and AB 1228. So if there's a couple of those that you're specifically passionate about and you want to speak on.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And first of all, I want to say these are just the criminal justice bills. There are so many of these, but this was started as part of a series that Dan Curry started, and he wrote some on environmental bills as well as labor rights. And so I highly recommend checking out those articles as well. And also I have to say that I did this with a lot of help from Dan and Fairmares, 2 other really great people from that work really hard with NOC. And so those their lawyer help, their lawyer advice really helped me a lot, because yes, I agree that it's really, really important for us to be paying attention to stuff at the city and state level. And this stuff is really, really complicated and can be really convoluted, but I think it's really important to be paying attention to some of these things. And a lot of people don't even know the content of what some of these bills have. There's a lot of consequential stuff that's going on that is up for a vote, coming up for a vote soon. So SB 2, that is definitely the one it's really hard to pick which ones I prioritize, but SB 2 is a really, really important one because it's a police decertification bill. And what a lot of people may not know is that police enjoy something called qualified immunity. And it is a privilege that comes with having a badge where they are allowed to commit certain crimes and not be prosecuted the way a civilian would, if, under the assumption that they are doing that in furtherance of some kind of justice, right? But we know from experience, and we've certainly learned a lot recently, that just isn't the case. That quite often police hide behind their badge and gun to commit crimes that they just should not be able to. And it also shouldn't be an excuse for incompetency. It might just be they just messed up. And the fact that there aren't any repercussions for this is just insanity to me. So SB 2 would open up that path to decertify police officers or any law enforcement that would be that are found guilty of committing a crime that they would otherwise be absolved of and excused for. So that is that's a very, very big consequential bill, and that is up for a new vote on Thursday in the Senate Appropriations Committee. And then let's see, what do we have? Oh yeah, SB 16. That is another really great one because it releases police records. And I mean, police are supposed to be public servants, and again, they, just like what Cerise was talking about earlier, in trying to find technically open documents, they the apparatus, the state apparatus, makes it so difficult to gain access to simple documents that should absolutely just be readily available, just as easy as Google, be able to search certain documents. And this bill would help add to the transparency that we really desperately need. I mean, trust in law enforcement is an all-time low, and this bill would really help at least with that transparency aspect. And we certainly deserve that as civilians, to see where the majority of our tax dollars are being spent. We absolutely have a right to know what they're doing behind closed doors and what they are, because they're just have so much freedom to obfuscate what their mistakes may be. What were the other ones that you had questions about?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want you to have to talk about all of them, but I was just focusing on the ones that were, up for a vote on Thursday in case people were interested in, following along. So the other ones were AB 1238, SB 262, and AB 1228, if you felt like talking on any of those.
Yes, that's right. Okay, so I mean, AB 1238, that's going to be coming up in the Senate Appropriations Committee on Thursday, and yeah, that would end tickets for jaywalking when safe, which seems like it could be a little innocuous. Seems like it wouldn't be that consequential, but that's the thing, is it can be used sort of like a quasi stop and frisk type bill, where if police officer just sees somebody walking across the street, and even on an empty street, they have an excuse to stop them and then search them because they're doing something quote unquote illegal. And then SB 262 is another really great one because Prop 25, for anyone who may not remember, would have done away with cash bail, but Californians voted against it. And it's unclear how many people, like the reasons why people voted against it, but the reason that we recommended that people voted against it is because the alternative that they were offering would have been a super shady, definitely biased algorithm, a risk assessment algorithm that would have looked at like demographic things, like where someone comes from, if they've committed any crimes before, if they are I don't know about race specifically being in it, but it doesn't but the point being that we voted against it because the alternative would have given actually even more power to the state, and it would have been really hard for someone to go against, to find a way out of that. And so, if they needed to, if they wanted to contest it, there we go, that's the word. And so what this bill would do is it reduces cash bail, but it's sort of a more a la carte option. It wouldn't be as sweeping, but it also wouldn't add anything else that would be super problematic the way that Prop 25 had. So it's really great to see that because it's not as conditional as Prop 25 would be.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you running through those with us and, giving people a little taste as to why they should go read your amazing article. So thank you so much, Alex, for being here. And yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, talk to you soon.
Bye. So yeah, like that piece, a huge part of not only the work at Ground Game LA, but Knock LA is, things around electoral politics and promoting progressive legislation. Last election cycle, Ground Game was a huge part of Nithya Rahman getting elected in C4. And as Alex mentioned, we did a huge voting guide for not just city council, but all over this city and state election. Like a lot of research and time went into that because we feel like it's important. And yeah, and you guys make a lot of that kind of stuff happen through your donations. So again, going to drop those links for you. If you're able to donate to Knock our ground game, that would be awesome. We're one big family. So yeah, and one more reminder to, if you want to win some Knock swag, to tweet out your favorite Knock article and drop the tweet link in the chat. And we'll pick somebody to win some Knock stuff. But yeah, and so last but certainly not least, we have John and Kate, John Peltz and Kate Gallagher, who are two of our reporters and also part of our editorial team at Knock. They're going to come on and talk about some of the articles they've written about the unhoused community here in LA. So yeah, let's get them on here. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi. So here we are talking about both of you. No, so yeah, why don't both of you just say sort of a little bit about you and how you came across Ground Game and Knock initially? Yeah, and when and how you became involved.
I became involved because I was volunteering on the Nithya campaign, and I'm sure, like many others, got to see the great Knock Voters Guide. And then I tabled with someone who was working with Knock, and at the time, I am still writing about video games, and we had discussed me contributing some video game writing to Knock, but obviously most of my work at Knock has not revolved around that topic.
Yeah. Kate?
Shelby actually brought me into Ground Game around the beginning of 2021, and I got involved in Knock. I have a background in writing, so it seemed like a good way to put my skills to use. I had already been kind of following Knock's coverage for a while, and it seems like the mission of Knock is really important for a place like LA, where there isn't a lot of good local news coverage. So I got involved around the beginning of this year, and I've been doing it ever since.
Awesome. Been crushing it, clearly, both of you. But yeah, I want to talk about a couple things, but first, like, one of the first sort of like big pieces that you guys did separately and together was about the incident at Echo Park Lake, where I think most people remember Mitchell Farrell sent the cops to descend on the community there, and it was a couple nights of craziness. There was lots of Knock people and Ground Game people there that night supporting. So I would love for you guys to talk a little bit about what happened with that and sort of the aftermath of that.
Who could forget?
Who could forget?
I actually totally forgot that happened until you just said it. Yeah, I mean, it's always strange to talk about in retrospect because, we were arrested with so many other people. I think it's 182, right? So yeah, we were out to cover the mass removal of encampments by CD13 in the Los Angeles Police Department from Echo Park Lake, from an operation, we now know costs like around $2 million. And yeah, so we were both taken to jail. And then, it's interesting because it isn't really going away because, so recently they had this report about Echo Park Lake and what happened there, and it was so full of falsehoods and, information that I feel like still needs to be sort of disputed. As you can see with what's happening with the amendments of 4118, the city is already in the planning stages, or I should say, some city council members are seemingly in the planning stages for making similar moves in terms of, taking down encampments on a large scale.
Anything to add to that, Kate?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it seems like Echo Park was kind of like a flashpoint where after that, a lot of people on city council and in the local government came away from it saying, well, it worked this time. We got this encampment out of there, kind of completely ignoring the mass outrage that it sparked. So we're seeing that kind of situation playing out a lot more with, for example, the sheriff department's attempt to clear the Venice boardwalk, and with 4118. And yeah, John's been covering a lot more of that with Venice.
Yeah, John did a couple pieces about what's happening in Venice, and spoke with Mike Bonin as well about his plan to help people get housed there. Do you want to talk a little bit about what's going on over there and any updates that you might have for people about the effects of 4118?
Yeah, I mean, in his particular district, it's there are still sort of these enforcement actions after the park closes on the beach. Where LA Sanitation comes and Los Angeles Police Department come, and as far as I know, there's been things like 5150s where they put mental health holds on folks and then they're released shortly thereafter. But it hasn't been with that particular program on Venice up to now. At least 175 people, I think, have gotten at least permanent housing vouchers, which it's complicated because they can't really use them until the housing actually gets assigned to them, which takes a great deal of time. But it did differ a bit from Mitch O'Farrell's sweep of Echo Park Lake, because as far as I know, if he had that sort of going on with permanent vouchers, I think he would have pushed that to the press a little more. So I don't think that's really happening. And also, he keeps stating this number: 200 people were housed, and the real number we know is a lot less than that. So yeah, it's interesting where there'll be little variations on this by different city council members, where at the end of the day, it seems like what people want is these sort of more than obviously the ideal priority would be housing people, but it seems like what sort of sets off these encampment removals is the idea of like beautification, like making an area more available to people who are wanting to do tourism or who complain the most, right? Like business owners and things like that. So that's usually that's like sort of the worry with all these 4118 things, like with sites that are being chosen, is that they'll just be chosen rather than choosing areas that are need the most priority, where it's like elderly people or people who may not be able to live outside on their own. It might just be focused on areas that people are complaining about and want to use. So that's sort of, I think, a bit of what we're going to start seeing. It's more beautification efforts.
Yeah. And John also did a piece recently about all the meetings that Jeffrey Katzenberg has been having with different city council members, theoretically to sort of influence certain policies, like it's especially on homelessness. And do you want to talk a little bit about that piece?
Sure. So yeah, I got stuck. Sorry, I'm holding my computer. So I got some information about this meeting that Jeffrey Katzenberg had with the city council member, and it's one of those things where I think we had talked about that people knew he was meeting with city council members, but I think the image sets off a lot of sort of fire in people's minds, because it's such an obviously clandestine thing where wealthy people, we know what they're doing. We know that they're having these sorts of meetings and not wanting anyone to know about them. But seeing it happen is sort of different. And just the fact that this person is meeting with people about a very specific topic, that there are so many advocacy groups and different bits of the community that try to meet with these officials, and just never hear back and never get emails back. Or with Mitch O'Farrell, the only group he met with, I have documents that support this, The only group you met with in advance of sweeping Echo Park Lake was this group called Friends of Echo Park, which is like this very right wing group, and so they only listen to a few select people on these issues, and that's the main, I think, problem with that Katzenberg meeting. You know, whether it's not something that we could prove anything like illegal happened. Maybe he did say something illegal. You're not supposed to fundraise that's on city property, but we don't. Obviously, I don't know what they talked about, but the main part of it is just that there are people who just cannot get these meetings, and they've been trying for years, and they're very involved with with the unhoused population, but they can't relay their findings to city offices. But someone from Hollywood with little experience on the issue can just waltz right in.
Yep. They work for us, right? They work for us. Yeah, that's yes. But thank you. I know that was a lot to talk about, but I appreciate you guys being on here, and yeah, and we look forward to more coverage from you guys. And I also want to uplift. We have a couple articles from How Can Self-Made, who is, himself a former unhoused person, and so you should definitely check those out, as well as in addition to some of the pieces we mentioned here today. So thank you so much, guys. I'll talk to you later.
Oh yeah, just everyone give us money so we could hire more writers to cover these.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, we're wrapping up here in a second, but I want to just do a quick sort of plug, I guess, for some other stuff we got going on. Yeah, drop that link. If you're able to donate and help us, keep paying more writers and to write all pieces like all the ones you've mentioned here today. We in Knock and Ground Game are one big family, so if you donate to Ground Game, it goes to us as well. But one quick last thing is we have a couple other things going on in our Knock world other than just writing pieces. And we have a culture section we're trying to beef up. So if you have any culture ideas, feel free to submit those to us as well. Pitches at knock.la. We just had a really great article from Nessa as well about a band that they interviewed called Choir Boy. So you should definitely check that out. And we also we had a podcast for a long time, a really awesome, great podcast that was hosted by Bushido Squirrel and Chris Roth. But they have very important things that they have stepped away to do. So we are revamping it a little bit, and we'll be relaunching soon some stuff, including I'll stop talking and I'll bring on Zach to talk a little bit about the podcast. Hi, Zach.
Hi. My cat decided to jump in my lap right before I came on, so.
Oh, perfect.
If I look weird.
We love a Zoom cat. So yeah, Zach's been handling sort of some of the podcast content that we want to start putting out. And yeah, I'll have him talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so as you can see from my very professional mic, I am a sound guy, mostly music, but podcasting is definitely something I'm interested in. So when this opportunity to kind of not take over, because we are horizontal and anybody who wants to could, work on a podcast, but kind of help lead and push things along, I jumped at that chance. So in the very near future, we are going to be putting out some basically audio versions of our articles, so that if people would rather listen than read, they can do that. It's also good for accessibility stuff, people who have trouble reading for any number of reasons, really. But yeah, I think it's going to be really good to help spread the writing that we have to another platform and another medium.
Yes, awesome. Yeah, agreed. I think it's going to be awesome for accessibility and stuff. And yeah, and another great part of Knock and how we operate is if anyone has like an idea for something they want to do on our podcast site, like definitely we're open to those ideas as well. So yeah, thank you, Zach. Zach's also is a sort of producer for tonight. So thank you so much, Zach. And yeah, so just a little bit more about Knock before we close out. We are a horizontally aligned organization, but what does that mean? It just sort of means that there's no bosses. We're all a collective. I am called managing editor or whatever, but we do this thing called service positions where everyone every like 3 or 4 months we have different people in different roles who are all again volunteering their time to perform different duties. So I have specific duties, no greater than a person who does our social media stuff. We built our treasurer, we have a culture editor, we have like a community like person who is like in charge of like some of interacting with some of our writers and all that stuff. So there are tons of ways to be involved with Knock if that's something that you want to do other than writing, if writing's not your thing. And we have that ground game has that structure as well, where people who are passionate about a certain project or issue have all the agency to to go for it, and people will be involved in that project as well if they're passionate about it. So it's like that thing of you give as much effort as you can, and that's totally awesome and fine and welcome. So again, if you're able, donate to Act Blue, Ground Gang's Act Blue, or become a patron on our Knock Patreon. And yeah, that will be it for tonight, guys. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, follow us on Twitter and yeah, submit pictures to us. We can't wait to hear from you. Thank you. Bye.